One question that occurred to me, Douglas, is you're published by Bloomsbury, like J.K. Rowling. Did you ever imagine that she would be more controversial a figure than you?
uh, well, I'm not sure I thought about it all that much. Bloomsbury, of course, published all of the Harry Potter novels to great acclaim, and in the last few months, the controversy around J.K. Rowling has spread to her new publisher, Hachette, where, of course, there was a an attempt to drop her book. A large number of staff, more than 100, signed a letter saying that they felt unsafe to be at a publishing house which was publishing J.K. Rowling. And this was for, of course, her new children's book called The Ichabog. I did suggest in print after that that, if an adult working in the publishing industry can't cope with The Ichabog, then they might be in the wrong industry.
But there's a question because then the phrase cancel culture has emerged over the years and is used for issues like this. But it's not really a thing for someone like J.K. Rowling and perhaps even you, that you can be abused, you
That's
can be
right.
criticised. You can't really be cancelled if you're sufficiently big, can you?
Well, there is a lot in that. Yes, I'm not particularly fond of the phrase cancel culture myself, precisely because of some of the objections you make. There are several things to say. The first is J.K. Rowling certainly is protected to some degree by the fact she's very wealthy. That is, she can't have all of her streams of income taken down one by one, which is what has happened with a lot of other people. And she's also got some protection from the top of her profession. The CEO of Hachette was extremely strong in this, in a way that certain people in other industries would not have been. So yes, there are protections. Unfortunately, those protections do tend to come if you are, as it were, at the top of your profession. The thing that worries me most, and I think gets least attention, is not the celebrities and the well-known writers who have had attempts to cancel them. It's people who work in perhaps less high-profile industries. It's cases like the Asda supermarket worker fired for sharing a Billy Connolly video. Now, he was actually reinstated in his job last year after the public, as it were, backlash against Asda for that. But there are many other cases that don't get that attention, where the person isn't known, where their views aren't really understood, and they're just over.
We're about to talk to Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary, and one of the policies of the new government is that university funding should only be given to those who show a commitment to free speech. Do you agree with that approach?
Yes, I do. It's clear, and I demonstrated in The Madness of Crowds, the extent to which much of the lunacy we're talking about in this, people who are basically unemployable yet employed, are actually products of the university system. This is a set of ideas, basically the fragility ideas, have all spread out from the American Academy from about the 1970s onwards. They've spread into the British Academy. These places where now half our population goes to be educated, I think they're educated to be more stupid than when they went in many cases. But the people who go into these universities now are taught all of these ideas, which are you have to learn them. The idea that we live in these endlessly hierarchical societies, which if you just deconstruct enough, you'll find interweave oppressions and all of this stuff. This is all stuff you have to be taught.
But we do
And
live
so,
in hierarchical societies where oppressions take place, Douglas, as well. I mean, it might be overstated or it might be misstated, but that's an ineluctable truth as well, isn't it?
they're not just overstated, they're also massively politically warped. So, for instance, people are told that we live in cis heteronormative, patriarchal, homophobic, racist societies. By the way, all of their understanding, as I show in The Madness of Crowds, of every single one of these terms is inept where it's even true, and it's not very often true. But what they do is focus on specific oppressions that they believe themselves able to cure. And of course, as I say, all of this is highly politically motivated. It's highly dangerous, and it's also cult-like. We've got to the stage with this one where people are being asked, and we've seen many examples of this in the last few weeks, are being asked to, for instance, disassociate from their parents, family, and indeed particularly grandparents, if their grandparents do not hold the correct views of the moment. Now, we would identify that normally as a cult, would be right to do so. Where universities are teaching people this sort of thing, we should say, actually, you're not teaching people how to think. You're not teaching how to be properly liberal-minded people. You're teaching them to be cult members, and the state taxpayers don't have to pay for that.
Well,